know, they put a note in the evangelist, whatever's here, okay, there's a person, well, there's a lady wearing a yellow blouse, she's at such a problem, she's got cancer, or had this problem, and then he just out of the blue, God tells me this lady right down here to go, and she needs healing. And it's a scam. But you know, and like I said, that's the reason they come is to bring notoriety to themselves, bring in money. Well, that wasn't Jesus' purpose. It wasn't to draw large crowds, but he did. It wasn't because they had enough for 5,000 he fed. So there's always people following him and wanting something, you might say. But like I said, it was he moved on because his message was involved far more than just 2 pounds. It was a message for all to hear, and that been shared in places that had yet to hear it. As Christ followers, this is also our purpose in ministry, is to reach out to all the nation. What's your Acts? You got it, Acts 1:8.
You shall receive the power and that the Holy Ghost is sent upon you, and you shall be witnesses to me, both in Jerusalem, and all of Judea, and Samaria, and to the uttermost part of the earth.
Really, that's God's commission to us. Can we go throughout? In other words, Jesus wanted to be confined to just the 1 or 2 towns. He wanted to reach out to the whole area and bring the gospel to them, just as we're to reach out. I don't think any of you got on the website for the Tri Rivers. They have a map, and I think in the middle it has Judea, Judea, and all the nations. And it's a Tri Rivers organization. We're to reach out. So not just here, but throughout all the nation, all the world. But Christians aren't called to build great followings or to make a name for ourselves. And heard about Jesus. Letting them know that salvation is only available through him. Then Jesus preached in our synagogues throughout all Galilee. Their hair clean because they were considered the equivalent of the walking dead. Now, I think there's a movie now about Walking Dead or something. I've never watched it, seen it, but I've kind of seen pictures, and it's kind of what I have in my mind, what these look like. But when other people approached them, they were required to shout out that they were unclean so people could avoid them. You know, can you think of a life like that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 And really, and like I said, this leprosy could mean a lot of things back in biblical times. And that probably would have back then would have said she had leprosy. And but you know, but this leper here that came to Jesus, it was the real thing. It wasn't just a skin rash. Yeah. Well, I've heard that it's coming back, leprosy.
Here in Texas.
What? Hansen's disease? Yes. But you know, the man was so desperate. You imagine how desperate he was that, and of course, Jesus was his last hope. What would it have been like to be treated as a total outcast with no one wanting to come near you? That would have been bad enough as itself. Let's to have the. Hmm? Yes, very lonely. They, like I said, they could not get around any people, loved ones, family, anyone. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, armadillos carry leprosy. Yeah. 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 They carry leprosy. But you know, you talk about how they were treated as outcasts. And you know, I'm ashamed to say, looking back now, I remember in school there was always someone who had cooties. You didn't touch them. You know, said, "Oh, they got cooties." You know, and it wasn't nothing to it. Yeah, yeah, we all caught it. Yeah, and like I said, I'm ashamed now that we, you know, kids would do that, and we'd go by somebody, touch, you got cooties, you know, and touch them. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's scabies. Yeah, yeah. Oh, we got that when I was playing football. We called it jungle rot. Yeah, it wouldn't heal. Wouldn't hardly heal, and looked bad. Of course, it would scab over, and then of course you'd practice football playing and knock the scab off, and it's a pussy, and it was bad. But that wasn't cooties though, so but it's close. It was close. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, that's the one that you know the captain that came to his servant came to Elijah, yeah, and told him to dip 7 times. He was talking about that I think last Sunday, and he thought that dirty river. I went, yeah. Of course, his servant said, "What do you got to lose? Yeah, you know, do it." Well, he did it, and he was cured. And then, of course, Elijah's servant got in a mess. Yeah, he got in a mess, and behind Elijah's back, he took all the gifts and everything, and then he got it. But anyway, it said he had faith enough to know that Jesus had the power to heal him. But the question to Jesus was one of willingness, if you are willing. You know, that's the decision was left up to Jesus. Always is. But only one capable of doing, he was the only one capable of doing the healing. Nothing is different today. The healing is up to Jesus and God. Modern medicine, science, doctors, aids, but all, you know, they all aid and help. But the final results is up to God. Jesus was moved with compassion and did the unthinkable. Can you see that picture? Jesus reached out and touched him, the leper. Can you imagine the gasp and the yuck when Jesus touched him? Goodness, I tell you, when Jesus approached him, when this leper came to him, I mean, the crowd spread because they didn't want to touch him, and Jesus reached out and touched him. That was the unthinkable. Yeah, don't. Yes, but Jesus would not have needed to touch him for the leper to receive healing. He could have just speak it. He could have just said the word. Yes. Oh, yeah. There's no telling how long he hadn't felt a human touch. And like I said, the compassion we saw. He said, "If you're willing." He didn't come to me asking or demanding. He just said, "If you're willing." And Jesus had compassion and reached out and touched him. But he wouldn't have had done that. And like I said, can you imagine? Like I said, the gasp of the people that, "Gosh, he's going to get it." And I can't imagine him touching a leper. But remember, the woman with the issue of blood just touched his garment, and she was healed. Remember the centurion who sent elders of Jews to Jesus to heal his servant? And he said, She said he was not worthy for Jesus to enter his house. Just Well, some of it isn't contagious. Yeah, 1%. Yeah. And remember, but the centurion told him, "All you got to do is say the word. And I'm not worthy for you to come into my house. Just say the word." Yes. Yeah. And he said, "Here's the one that's not even a Jew, has more faith than the Jews." And he said, but he marveled at his faith. And when the elders returned to the centurion's house, the servant was healed. I thought, well, that's a lot of love for your servant, too. That centurion, he could have just said, "Just be done with it. Just let him die. I've got more, or I can get another one." And but like I said, but in this case here, the leper, he chose to touch the leper, and I think he made a picture, that we're all unclean. We're all unclean, and we all need the touch of his hand.
I was just thinking about salvation and how each person personally in mind, that he would touch me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, there's a song, "He Touched Me," and it's and like I said, we're all unclean when we come. So when Jesus touched him, the healing was immediate. When we confess our sins and come to him, the healing is complete. It's immediate. The leprosy was gone. I'm trying to picture this man covered in sores, and Jesus touched him, this blink of an eye, he's clean.
Like Restream said a while ago, and then what you just said about the song, "He Touched Me."
Yeah.
And oh, the joy that floods my soul.
Floods my soul.
You know that leper felt more joy than he felt in
Oh yeah.
years
Yes.
since he caught that man.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And like I said, and I try to picture that. Like I said, just covered with sores, and Jesus touched him. It's gone. His skin is clean. It's lily white and just clean. But the leprosy is gone. Jesus made the man ceremoniously clean in the eyes of the Mosaic law. Though he was healed, he would need to show himself to the priest to be readmitted to first century Jewish religious life. So I'm going to read now verses 43 through 45.
And he straightly charged him, forthwith sent him away, saith unto him, See thou say nothing to any man, but go thy way, shew thyself to the priest, and offer for thy cleansing those things which Moses commanded, for a testimony unto them. But he went out and began to publish it much, and to blaze abroad the matter, insomuch that Jesus could no more openly enter into the city, but was without in desert places, and they came to him from every quarter.
Jesus was serious about the man not telling anyone. At first glance, we might take that to be a very odd warning. Jesus, why would he tell him, don't tell anyone? Now, do you expect him not to? It goes back and said, don't tell this, don't tell anyone. Yeah, and you tell everybody.
Don't tell the leper.
Yeah, don't tell the leper, right. But Jesus was emphasizing that his mission was not just to heal people. Jesus didn't want the reputation of another miracle worker or healer. He didn't want massive crowds coming to him just to be healed from whatever ailment they might be suffering from. Jesus was committed to revealing the kingdom of God on earth. He was remaining true to his mission by avoiding the distractions and that the healing would create. He was focusing on his message of redemption and his work to bring good news of salvation to everyone. In keeping with Levitical law, he would have to show himself to the priest. Now, if you read Leviticus 14, 1-4, this is just kind of a summary. It's the whole chapter.
The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, This shall be the law of the leprous person for the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought to the priest, and the priest shall go out of the camp, and the priest shall look. Then if the case of the leprous disease is healed in the leprous person, the priest shall command them to take for him who is to be cleansed 2 live clean birds and cedar wood and scarlet yarn and hyssop.
Okay, in other words, he would have to show, it's really the whole chapter there, nearly what all this required. But he'd have to show himself to the priest. He would need to make the necessary sacrifices so that he could be declared clean and rejoin the life at home and at the temple. Now, even though the leper was totally healed, he was not considered clean until the priest pronounced him clean. But Jesus was honoring the law of God, as well as giving a testimony to the priest in that the incurable disease had been cured. But look back, think about it. But he had already been cleansed by the high priest, Jesus Christ. He had already declared him clean. And that was Jesus, the high priest, had cleaned him. Huh? Yes, follow the law. In other words, like I said, he wasn't really clean until the priest declared him clean. But Jesus had already declared him clean. And he was the high priest. But that was to satisfy the crowd and the people. But while Jesus conflicts with the religious establishment, he had not reached while Jesus conflicts with the religious establishment, had not yet reached their peak, he understood well enough that they would stubbornly reject him and anything suggested that he was the Messiah. While the man had good intentions of telling everyone what had happened to him and who had healed him, it was ultimately present a huge challenge for Jesus and his ministry. Remember, many had wanted to take him and set him up as a king, and that he would overthrow the Roman government. But that was not the purpose of Jesus. And that was another thing where he said, don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. And he had to avoid a lot of the major towns and cities because they would take him and try to set him up as king. But many but he would avoid going to those towns because of the large crowds that would gather. Instead, he chose to stay in a more isolated area. But even there, crowds managed to find him, and they would come from everywhere to see and hear him. Regardless, Jesus began to proclaim the word freely, without restraint and hesitation. We got several minutes there. We got through early. Any comments?
Well, I was thinking when I was reading this,
Mm-hmm.
if it was me, and Jesus would tell me, don't tell anyone, I'd be afraid to tell anybody.
Well, yeah, I would be too. I'd be afraid to tell.
At the same time, I'd be so thankful.
Yes.
That I've lost this
Mhm.
disease. I no longer have the
Right.
disease. I'm clean.
Yeah.
That I would be shouting it from the roof.
Yeah.
Not only that, I think he had to explain how he lost it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What happened to you? But he was supposed to go to the synagogue and the priest, and he didn't. Whether he eventually did or not, we don't know. I'm saying he probably did, to be pronounced clean. And this was not the only time that Jesus told one healed not to tell anyone. And you can imagine, like I said, that wasn't his purpose to come and heal. There's a song, and I forget exactly how the words. If he had ever come and never performed a miracle, he'd still been God, and that's true. He could have come and not performed any miracles. But you know, the Jewish law and custom was they sought a sign, and that was really a sign to them that he was the Messiah, that he was the Son of God. But still, they wouldn't accept it. Didn't learn. Yes, yes. They all need to do is go back to the Old Testament, and Jesus is predicted throughout it. I mean, it's leading to. Some said the Old Testament leads to the cross, and the New Testament leads back to the cross. And and really, these a lot of them were scholars. They studied the Scripture, and they should have known. But I think it got to be where, well, I'm going to lose my status. A lot of if I accept him. And he's rocking the boat, right? Exactly. Yes.
You know, I'm sitting here thinking, the don't tell
Mhm.
anyone is almost like this little light of mine.
Right.
Shine. No, you're not.
Yeah.
But it's not the outward cleansing he does,
Mm-hmm.
but tell about the inward cleansing he does.
Mm-hmm. Well, and sometimes I don't think you have to tell. I think it shows. Uh, yeah, I think years ago when I was working out at Dale City, there was nothing to do, so I just said, "Well, I'll lose some weight," and there's nothing else to do. Well, I lost about 40 pounds, and the people that saw me afterwards, they said, "Well, they saw a change. You know, what happened to you?" I didn't have to tell them. You know, have you been sick? But what? Yeah, I was bored. Yeah, yeah, I know. Right. Yeah, yeah, but not out there. I mean, you were lucky to even get television. Yeah, I remember watching the Cowboys, and you just all what they used to call the snow. You know, you just kind of try to pick out between the and but yeah, kind of tell who's who. You know, but and like I said, we don't have to tell someone sometimes. They'll see a change in you when we've accepted Christ, especially when we're older, you know, an adult, and we accept Christ. That people are going to see a change in you. You don't have to proclaim it to tell anyone, and that gives you an opportunity too. What's happened to you? Well, there's been a change in my life, and Jesus came into my life, into my heart.
Just imagine if all that Jesus did while he was here on earth,
Mm-hmm.
if all of the things he did had been written down, because just these few that saw this happen, he chose them to write the Bible.
Oh yeah.
All the other things that he did.
Yes. Yeah. And really, you think about it, too, put yourself in the place of that leper that was healed. People saw a difference, and probably didn't have to go out and proclaim it. I mean, it's what happened. He said, "A man named Jesus touched me and healed me." Yeah. Well, I think spiritually he was cleansed. I would think that's up to him. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. We don't know. You know, that's the end of the story there. I mean, but we want to hope that it did. Yeah. Yeah.
You talked about how the Old Testament pointed to the Messiah for the Old Testament. Did they have the problem back then, though, and people not just totally spiritually aware
Yeah.
of people saying, maybe trying to make people think that they were the Messiah like we do nowadays? You know, I'm the Christ. Come
Oh
back.
yeah, I'm sure they did. They had the fakes, and I'm sure they did. And well, and not what they had the false prophets. Yes. Yeah. And even in the was it Paul spoke in the New Testament of people, the false prophets and everything. And no, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
but I just, I thought maybe people just got leery of won't they accept anybody.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Like I said, I think Brother Steve may have said, or someone said, if I'd been writing it, he'd been born in a palace and yeah, the Rolls Royce, yeah, driving around. But good thing it wasn't left up to us. And I would have had been a lot of people struck down. And I heard, I think it was Robert Jeffers this morning said, don't think you're getting away. Some people think when you commit a sin, you're going to get zapped right then. Said it may be a while. He's talking about Sodom and Gomorrah, and how long it was. Of course, it went a long time. Went on a long time before God said, "I've had enough." And it's the same.
What I keep wondering, when's he gonna say,
Yeah.
had enough,
Yeah.
America?
Right. But yeah. Yeah. But he was referring to Christians, individuals that were living immoral lives, and Christians that weren't living the life they should. And said, don't think you're getting away with it. It may be a while, years before they find out, before it resurfaces. Dana was right, exactly. Yes, that's true.
Kind of like the teachers and the parents get on you.
Mhm.
And, oh, wait a minute, we got a substitute today.
Yeah, yeah,
You're right. If you paid right then.
yeah. I know. Dana was telling us about a substitute. Was it a substitute teacher? But he'd taught, I think, several years in junior high, and then come to find out that he what? Oh, he didn't teach it. Okay, elementary he taught. Well, that was even worse. But he had videos of even his wife. Uh, he had cameras in the bathroom, videos of his wife, and videos and of course child pornography on his. Yeah, he got caught with it. But anyway, it was terrible. I mean, what all had happened, and but he had hidden cameras and everything, of his children and him teaching. Yeah, right.
Well, the teachers are obviously in some places promoting all this.
Oh yeah, Oklahoma hired one of the schools hired a what do you call them? The women they dress up like the no the shoot I can't think.
Drag queen.
Drag queens. They hired a drag queen as one of the principal on their schools. And no, of course, there's been a big outcry to get rid of it. Yeah, of Oklahoma. Yeah, of all places. Yeah, go figure. Yeah, 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 yeah. Got here as soon as you could.
Born and raised, nice and easy.
Yeah, me too. Born and raised. What? Well, that's right. Yeah. It's what I call them. It's. Proper pronouns there. It's. Okay, we're about time to dismiss. So, Butch, would you